Men pursue what they value. That's not a theory. That's not an opinion. That's not something up for debate. It's how men are wired. And if you truly understand that, you'll stop confusing yourself over mixed signals and start paying attention to clear actions. Let me explain something to you. A man can be busy. A man can be stressed. A man can be overwhelmed. But when something matters to him, he moves. He rearranges. He adjusts. He finds a way. You don't have to beg him to show up for the things he truly cares about. Think about his hobbies. Think about his career goals. Think about his friends. Somehow, no matter how packed his schedule is, he finds time for what he values. He doesn't forget. He doesn't hesitate. He doesn't need reminders. If he values you, you will feel it. Not because he says beautiful words, but because his behavior lines up with his interest. A man who values you will protect access to you. He won't risk losing connection over pride. He won't disappear without explanation. He won't leave you guessing where you stand. When you matter, clarity follows. A lot of people get stuck because they focus on how they feel instead of observing how he acts. You might miss him deeply. You might think about him every night. You might replay conversations and imagine what could be. But your emotions don't determine his value system. His actions do. Men are hunters by nature. When they want something, they go after it. Not halfway, not when it's convenient. They pursue with intention. If he sees you as valuable, he invests. Time, energy, attention, those are a man's real currency. Words are cheap. Promises are easy, but effort costs him something. If he calls consistently, that's value. If he makes plans and keeps them, that's value. If he checks in just to hear your voice, that's value. If he introduces you to the people in his life, that's value. These are not grand gestures. These are basic indicators of priority. The confusion starts when a woman tries to interpret inconsistency as hidden affection. Maybe he's scared, and maybe he's been hurt, maybe he doesn't know how he feels. Listen carefully. When a man values you, fear doesn't paralyze him, it motivates him. He might move carefully, but he will still move. A man who sees your worth doesn't gamble with your presence. He doesn't play timing games. He doesn't test how long you'll wait. He knows that if you're valuable, someone else will see it too, and he won't risk losing something rare. Another thing you need to understand is this: men respect what they have to work for. If you make everything easy while receiving little in return, you're teaching him that minimal effort is enough. Value must be matched with standards. When you require consistency, when you don't chase, when you don't overextend yourself for crumbs, you naturally reveal your worth. You don't have to announce your value. You demonstrate it by what you tolerate. A man who values you pays attention to your reactions. If he notices that you don't reward inconsistency with more access, he adjusts if he cares. If he doesn't adjust, that tells you something powerful. It tells you his level of investment is limited. Men pursue what they value, and they maintain what they appreciate. Maintenance is where real intention shows. It's easy to pursue at the beginning. It's easy to send long messages and sweet compliments when everything is new. But what happens after comfort sets in? Does he still check in? Does he still prioritize time with you? Does he still make you feel chosen? A man who values you doesn't leave you emotionally starving. He understands that attention and reassurance are part of keeping something meaningful alive. Not because you demand it, but because he naturally wants to sustain what he treasures. If you ever find yourself constantly questioning where you stand, that uncertainty is information. When you are valued, you don't feel like an option. You don't feel like a backup plan. You don't feel like a secret. You feel secure because his actions create stability. And let's be honest about something else. Sometimes it's not that he doesn't like you. Sometimes it's simply that he doesn't value you enough. That's a hard truth. A man can enjoy your company. He can be attracted to you. He can even care about you in some way. But value is deeper than enjoyment. Value creates commitment-level behavior. If he values you, he protects the connection. He communicates through misunderstandings. He doesn't vanish when things get slightly uncomfortable. He leans in instead of pulling away, because losing you would cost him something meaningful. The mistake many people make is trying to increase their value in someone's eyes by overgiving. More attention, more availability, more understanding. But value isn't created by overextension. It's recognized by alignment. The right man sees your worth without you having to exhaust yourself proving it. When a man truly values you, he doesn't need to be convinced to show up. He doesn't need to be reminded to care. He doesn't need ultimatums to step up. He moves because internally he has decided you are important. So instead of asking whether he misses you, ask whether he values you. Because missing someone is emotional. Valuing someone is behavioral. One creates feelings. The other creates action. Watch what he does with his time. Watch how quickly he responds. Watch how he handles conflict. Watch whether he includes you in his future conversations. These patterns will tell you everything you need to know. Men pursue what they value. If you are truly a priority, you will not have to chase clarity. You will not have to compete for attention. You will not have to shrink yourself to fit into his life. He will make space. Silence is a decision. It may not feel like one at first. It may feel confusing, accidental, temporary, or even harmless. But when you really strip away the excuses and the emotional noise, silence, especially repeated silence, is a choice. People don't accidentally ignore someone they deeply care about. They don't repeatedly forget to respond. They don't consistently disappear without realizing it. In today's world, everyone is holding a phone almost every hour of the day. We respond to what matters. We check what matters. We prioritize what matters. So when someone goes quiet on you, that quiet is speaking. When a man stops calling, stops texting, stops checking in, he is making a decision about where you fall in his priorities. It may not be a dramatic decision. It may not even be something he consciously announces to himself. But behavior always reveals hierarchy. If days go by and you hear nothing, that gap is not empty. It is filled with information. Many people struggle here because they want verbal closure. They want a conversation. They want an explanation that makes emotional sense. But often the explanation is already there. Silence is the explanation. If someone truly values connection with you, they don't feel comfortable with prolonged distance. When you care about someone, their absence creates curiosity. It creates concern. It creates desire to reconnect. You don't sit comfortably in disconnection from someone who matters to you. You reach out because the silence bothers you. We tend to romanticize silence. We say, maybe he's overwhelmed, or maybe he's dealing with something personal, or maybe he's trying to give me space. And yes, sometimes. Life does get heavy. Sometimes people need a moment. But when silence becomes a pattern instead of an exception, it stops being circumstantial and starts being intentional. One missed call is human. A week of unexplained distance is a signal. Repeated cycles of disappearing and reappearing are not confusion, they are control. That kind of silence teaches you to accept inconsistency. It conditions you to lower your expectations. It makes you grateful for crumbs because you're afraid of getting nothing at all. Silence can also be avoidance. Some people do not know how to communicate discomfort, doubt, or loss of interest. Instead of expressing it directly, they withdraw, they delay, they hope the connection fades without confrontation. It feels easier to say nothing than to say something uncomfortable. Because when you are left in silence, your mind fills the gaps. You overthink. You replay conversations. You analyze your last message. You wonder if you said too much or too little. Silence creates self-doubt if you let it. If someone can comfortably go long stretches without checking on you, without wondering how you are, without maintaining the connection, then you are not occupying the emotional space you thought you were. Because once you accept that silence as a decision, you stop chasing noise. You stop sending double texts trying to revive something that is not being watered from the other side. You stop carrying the entire emotional weight of the relationship alone. If someone wants you in their life, they do not rely on silence to communicate. They don't expect you to decode their absence. They don't leave you guessing whether you matter. Even in busy seasons, there is acknowledgement. Even in stressful times, there is reassurance. Even in conflict, there is conversation. Silence as punishment, silence as manipulation, silence as indifference, these are all forms of communication. They communicate distance. They communicate limitation. They communicate how much someone is willing to invest. Sometimes silence is also testing. A person may go quiet to see if you will chase, to see if you will panic, to see if you will prove your attachment by overreaching. And when you respond by scrambling for their attention, you reinforce that dynamic. You show them that they can withdraw and you will compensate. But when you respond to silence with composure, something shifts. You show that you value mutual effort. You show that your energy is not available for one-sided pursuit. You show that if someone steps back without explanation, you are willing to step back too. You cannot force someone to communicate. You cannot force someone to prioritize you. You cannot force someone to miss you. But you can observe, and observation is power. If someone's silence leaves you anxious more often than secure, pay attention. If you feel like you are always waiting, always wondering, always initiating, pay attention. The emotional pattern matters more than the occasional sweet message that breaks the quiet. When someone genuinely fears losing you, silence does not feel safe to them. They don't risk it. They don't gamble on your patience. They don't assume you will always be there no matter how little they show up. They understand that connection requires maintenance. If he can go silent and sleep peacefully while you are left restless and confused, that imbalance is speaking loudly. It may not be the dramatic ending you expected. It may not be the confrontation you rehearsed in your mind, but it is clarity. The truth is, when someone chooses silence, they are choosing distance. They are choosing not to engage. They are choosing not to reassure. They are choosing not to prioritize. You should never have to convince someone to miss you. Missing someone is not something that can be negotiated, begged for, or carefully strategized into existence. It is a natural emotional response to absence when there is genuine attachment. If you find yourself trying to engineer that feeling in someone pulling back just to see if they react, posting things to trigger jealousy, withholding affection to create anxiety, you are already operating from a place of imbalance. When someone truly values your presence, your absence is felt automatically. You don't have to disappear dramatically for them to notice. You don't have to play games to spark their attention. Your energy, your consistency, your voice, your presence in their daily rhythm, those things become integrated into their emotional world. And when something integrated is removed, it leaves a gap. If you have to explain your worth repeatedly, if you have to remind someone how good you are to them, if you have to constantly point out what you bring to the table, then they are not experiencing your value organically. And forced appreciation is never stable. It fades the moment you stop advocating for yourself. Convincing someone to miss you often starts subtly. You may begin by overgiving. You respond instantly. You are always available. You adjust your schedule. You listen endlessly. You support consistently. And somewhere inside there is a quiet hope. If I show up enough, he will realize what he has. If I love him hard enough, he will feel how special this is. If someone does not naturally feel your impact, no amount of overextension will manufacture it. In fact, overgiving can sometimes reduce perceived value. When access to you requires no effort, when your attention is guaranteed regardless of his investment, there is no tension created by absence. There is no space for longing to grow. It requires emotional awareness. It requires recognition of loss. If you are always the one maintaining contact, always initiating, always checking in, then the connection never experiences your absence fully. You are cushioning him from feeling it. Think about this carefully. When someone misses you, it changes their behavior. They reach out first. They think about you during random moments. They want to share small updates. They look for reasons to reconnect. That energy flows outward naturally. It does not need prompting. Another subtle way people try to convince someone to miss them is by shrinking themselves. They become less demanding, less expressive, less vocal about needs. They think if I don't ask for too much, he'll stay. If I don't pressure him, he'll appreciate me more. But suppressing yourself does not create longing. It creates emotional distance. When you are fully yourself expressive, honest, clear, you give someone the opportunity to experience the real you. And if they connect deeply, your absence will feel real too. But if you dilute yourself to fit into their comfort zone, they are not even attached to your true presence. They are attached to the version you edited. Convincing someone to miss you also keeps you in a reactive mindset. You start monitoring their responses. You measure how long it takes them to text back. You analyze tone. You test boundaries. Instead of enjoying connection, you are managing it. Instead of feeling chosen, you are trying to earn selection. This does not mean relationships do not require effort. They absolutely do. But effort should be mutual and organic. You show up because you want to. He shows up because he wants to. When both sides invest willingly, missing each other becomes natural during absence. And here is something important. If someone does not miss you when you step back respectfully, that is not proof that you are unlovable. It is proof that the attachment was not equal. That truth may sting, but it protects you from wasting years trying to increase your worth in someone else's eyes. When someone values you, they do not need to lose you completely to understand your importance. Small distance creates awareness. A missed call feels noticeable. A quieter day feels different. They are attuned to your presence, and that attunement is what creates missing. If someone can go long periods without noticing your reduced effort, without commenting on your absence, without attempting to restore connection, that is clarity. It means your presence was convenient, not essential. You deserve to be with someone who feels the shift when you are not there, someone who senses the difference in their day, someone who reaches for you instinctively, not strategically, someone who does not need a lesson in your value. Convincing is exhausting. It drains your confidence. It places you in a position of proving instead of receiving. And love should never feel like a courtroom where you present evidence of your worth. Respect what you see, not what you hope for. That is where emotional maturity begins, not in how deeply you feel, not in how loyal you are, not in how much potential you can imagine. Maturity begins when you stop arguing with reality. Hope is powerful. It can make you patient. It can make you forgiving. It can make you see light in places that are dim. But hope, when it ignores evidence, becomes self-deception. And in relationships, self-deception is dangerous because it keeps you investing in a version of someone that does not consistently exist. When a man shows you who he is through his actions, believe that version, not the version he promises to become, not the version he is working on. Not the version you saw once during a perfect week when everything felt aligned. Believe the pattern, not the peak moment. Anyone can be amazing temporarily. Anyone can rise to the occasion when they feel like they might lose you. Anyone can deliver a beautiful speech about change. But what happens after the emotion settles? What happens when comfort returns? Does the effort stay? Does the communication remain steady? Does the respect continue? If he cancels often, that is a pattern. If he disappears when things get serious, that is a pattern. If he avoids defining the relationship but enjoys all the benefits of having you, that is a pattern. And patterns are not accidents. They are